Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming today. So I'm Jane Oakes. I'm the Gambling Service Coordinator at Turning Point. So I've worked at Turning Point now for about 2 years. Prior to that, I came from the statewide Gambling Therapy Service, which was a face-to-face program in South Australia, where I worked since 1998, providing assessment and evidence-based treatment for problem gambling. So today I'm going to talk about the Helpline, and my colleague Amanda has also kindly joined me today to answer any questions you might have about issues on the floor where we take the calls. So I'll just skip that one. So I'll just take a moment just to sort of describe to you a little bit about the team. So we have our team, which is led by Professor Dan Lubman, who's one of the experts in addiction therapy. We also have Dr. Matthew Fry, who's also an addiction specialist, and Anthony Denham, who is our manager of the whole service, and Dr. Kitty Vivekananda. So she manages all the programs at the floor level. And I'm one of the coordinators, and we have shift supervisors who actually supervise the counsellors on the floor. So if there's any issues or they'd like to debrief a call, we've got ongoing support for our counsellors. And if the shift supervisors aren't on, the counsellors can always call one of the coordinators 24 hours a day if they need support. So our counsellors are well supported. We have a systems team who are always available 24 hours to manage any problems that we might have with the telephone or online systems. And we have an admin team. And we have about 70 counsellors who work a 24-hour shift over 7 days a week who manage the lines. So we have a number of different lines, just so you have a bit of an idea about what we do at Turning Point. So we manage the New South Wales Gambling Helpline. They also have a special online program that we also manage, where we have real stories and blogs that we write each month. And we also have the prison line for New South Wales, which is where prisoners are allowed a 10-minute call, and they can contact our service as many times as they like from inside the prison about their gambling issues. And in New South Wales, we also have an Indigenous line specific for Indigenous clients. So all of our counsellors are well trained in managing Indigenous callers. We also manage the Gambling Helpline in the ACT and Tasmania and South Australia, and some out of hours work in Northern Territory. We also look after the National Online Gambling Helpline, which I'll just spend a moment talking about in a little while. So that's what it looks like, where our counsellors work. So they each have a little hub and a computer and a phone where they take the different lines. So they also take lines from alcohol and drugs and drug diversion programs. So they not only take gambling, they have a lot of other lines that they look after. So I just thought I'd take a minute just to talk about why some of the callers who come don't accept a referral. And that's important because, as Jodie said, we know that a lot of people don't seek help, and when they do seek help, sometimes they're reluctant to go on and have further help. So one of the main aims of our counsellors and our program, and the model of care that I'm going to briefly discuss with you, is making sure that our clients actually do go through and have a referral for ongoing help. So we spend a lot of time to do that. But on some occasions, there are reasons why people don't want a referral, and that might be that they're already in treatment. We get a lot of people who call about a significant other or someone else, but however, we always spend some time to try and encourage the significant others to actually go on and engage in ongoing help too, because we know that they also need support to manage the situation they're actually living with when they have a person in their life who's got gambling problems. Sometimes people seek information only. They're pre-contemplative or ambivalent, they're not quite sure, so that's where the model of care comes in really, is really helpful to try and help people to work through that ambivalence and take the next step. They just want self-help tools. They're just after they want to try it themselves, because we know particularly on the online program that stigma and shame is a particular issue that stops people going on and having help. So sometimes people are just tipping their toe in the water when they call our service, and it takes a lot of courage, and so we really want to try and make the most of that one-time contact. So even if someone just wants a self-help tool, we'll also encourage them to go on and have help as well. Sometimes they drop out for some reason. That might be a reason why. Perhaps their phone wasn't charged, or they went somewhere where they couldn't have the connection. Sometimes it's very rare, but we'd refer them to a non-gambling help service. Maybe they're in crisis and they need immediate crisis help. So if that's the situation, we'll do that first as their main problem. They don't have time. Sometimes they're just calling really quickly when no one's around, and then they hang up because someone comes back. Or unable to access a referral agency, so it might be that they can't, for some reason, make that particular agency. So there's quite a few reasons why people aren't quite ready, but we certainly try to address all those in our model of care. So another way that we've planned or tried to make sure that clients go on and have a referral is that we've got this triage, because we found that not a lot, but we do get a number of callers who are calling for, unfortunately, the brochures in casinos have on the back of it gambling help, and they often think that we're a help program for gambling, so they sometimes ring up, don't they, Amanda? So they ring up for tips on gambling, or that machine didn't take. I can't get my money back, or they might just ring up, I've left my jumper in the casino, can you go and let me know how to find it? So we get all sorts of calls like that, which often take time, and they take time away from our counsellors. So what we did was we arranged to have this three options when someone rings. So if they really want to speak with a counsellor, they press 1 and they go straight to a counsellor. If they've got other issues, such as they want information or something else, or even hoax callers, then they go to the other options, so that they don't clog up the lines, so that our clients can't get the help they need. So, and what we found is, since we've done that and we've been doing the call recording, the hoaxes have actually been reducing, so we're getting less hoax calls, aren't we? So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the kind of care that we give at the Helpline, so you've got a bit of an understanding when you go out there and know what we do. And this model of care provides a good foundation to supervise our counsellors. All our counsellors are supervised, have regular supervision with one of the senior staff. So we have 6 phases of the model of care. So just to go through this quickly, the first one is engagement. It's really, really important we engage with the client, because it took a lot of courage for them to come, and we don't want to lose them. And it's something that you raised, was engagement's really, really important. So we actually take time to be interested and respond to the client's expectations and goals. So what we do is if someone rings up for perhaps to be barred, or if they ring up for some information, we might just try and determine what's going on for them, and we'll set up we like to do a single session evaluation. So after the client's actually talked about what they want to discuss, we'll just reflect back and say, so what the purpose of the call today is to perhaps talk about barring, and also we're going to spend some time and talk about problem gambling and perhaps opportunities for ongoing help. So we actually really reflect back to the client. So we're really sure that we're addressing what they've called about, and they feel heard. That's really, really important. So that the second step is to build an understanding of the client's situation. So we don't do a confessional from the client, because then I'll explain that in a minute, because if we ask the client just to talk a lot about the harms, they become more and more distressed, and it's very hard for them to think clearly and engage in appropriate help that suits them. So we don't want to make them more upset. We just want to find out what is it that they called today about. So we we know that they might have had this idea to call for a while, and that gambling's been a problem for some time, but for some reason they decided to call today. And it's really important that we find out what is it, what's that light bulb moment that happened with the client that they called up for on that particular time. And we also need to know about just a little bit that they've got supports, just a bit of a history, so we understand what life's like for them. The third bit is what are the most significant issues and how can they be further informed. So we just spend a little bit of time building the client's awareness about what is problem gambling, just give them a little bit of an education session, and then we talk a bit about harm minimisation, ways they can reduce the harm. And a brief intervention is really, really important, because we know some people ring up and they're pre-contemplative, they're not quite ready. So all our counsellors are trained in motivational interviewing and brief techniques. So we're not actually counselling the client. The whole process of the model of care is to get them to you. And so our brief interventions are aimed at increasing their motivation for ongoing help. So we spend some time just to look at that with a variety of motivational interviewing exercises that we might do. And then what's important is we know is the next steps, and it's important that we make sure the next step fits the client, because sometimes if it's not the right step and we just offer them something, they're less likely to go. So are they ready for face-to-face counselling? Is there a way we can get them more prepared, making sure that they have the right area, they can get there, they can afford to get there, and there's lots to take into consideration. Oh, sorry, that's gone. And so then at the end of the session we just make sure that we've got what the client wants. So we go back over what the client called about. So you called about barring, we've spent some time talking about problem gambling, and we've given you some information about the next steps. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about today? So we just make sure the client's got what they want out of the call and they're confident to go on and have further help. So this is a model that we've developed at the Helpline, and it was based on a couple of my colleagues' work as well. So I've just done a PhD in relapse in problem gambling, and my colleague Simone Rudder's also done a PhD across similar area. So what we found was that, and I've briefly mentioned this, when someone calls up in distress, we can see the red line there, is that they are distressed. And if we ask them more and more about what's been going on, how much have you lost and how long's it been going for? So if we ask all those upsetting questions, what will happen is they'll become much more distressed and they'll disengage. We'll find that when you're on the phone to them, they've become too upset, and all they can think about is perhaps going back and gambling so they can get out of that financial situation that suddenly dawned on them is really bad. So we don't want to increase their distress. However, what we also don't want to do is reassure them that everything's going to be okay, because if we reduce their distress right down, they want permission to keep gambling. And so if we sort of say, look, what about you go and talk to your sister, she can give you a little bit of money and pay the bills, you'll be okay. Oh, that's fine, I'm okay, I have my bills paid, I can keep gambling, that's not a problem. So what we really want to get the person is at a workable zone. So we really want them to start to reflect a little bit that their behaviour is a problem. We don't want it to escalate, that it's a really, really bad problem, but we want them to start reflecting. So we sort of talk to them, what's gambling been like for you? You know, like what you called up, it's a problem, just so they can see that it is a problem. So that's really, really important that they actually do some self-learning and self-observation. So that helps them to go on and get some help, because then they realise, gee, I do need some help, this is a problem. So that's a brief overview of our distress model. This model was actually funded by the VRGF, so we did a little project where we did some interviews with a variety of different counsellors and some client, significant other, to try and find out the best way to manage distress when someone calls up for help so that they go on and have help. So sometimes when people ring the helpline, they want self-help modules. So sometimes what we do in addition to giving them a referral might be, look, you know, they're really struggling managing their urge, or they don't know how to manage their money in the meantime. because if money is an issue, we'll make sure we refer them to a financial counsellor. However, on the online program, there's lots of different modules that people can go on and get support before they see a counsellor if they've got to wait a couple of days. So they can learn how to manage urges, they can actually go and check the forum out and see what other people have done and get some peer support. So this is a good way of supporting people until they actually can get to your program. If we can keep them engaged, it's really, really important. And that's some of the self-help modules they can do while they're waiting to come and see you. Looking at their values, setting goals, breaking the habit, managing money, a variety of different ones. You could always go online and have a look at the modules if you wanted to. And I've just given that to everybody. So it just outlines the actual process that we go through when someone calls up, and it's the 6 steps I've gone through. On the other side, we can see, of course, the duty of care always comes first. And so when clients, if they are distressed, or if they, as you mentioned, some people are suicidal ideation is quite common, that's our main area of concern, and so the duty of care comes first no matter what happens. And the options on the side are whether we do a facilitated a referral, so that means when someone's on the phone, we can actually ring up the counsellor with the person on the phone, and then we can get the client to talk with the counsellor and connect with them in person over the phone. If it's not 24 hours, if it's after hours, then we can do an email referral, or there's other options in other states where we can do a 7-day follow-up. We often ring people back and see if we can help them keep going on to have ongoing help by perhaps offering them a little bit more motivational interviewing after they've had time to think about it. So that's the model of care. You can look at it in more detail if you'd like to. So the additional aspects of the care is that we do manage repeat and regular contact. So if we notice that someone's ringing regularly, we have a management plan for regular callers. We have a ready to change program that's offered in some states where people can have a 6-step phone counselling based on motivational interviewing. We can support clients and their significant others, and the hoax and information calls I've gone through. So what we do have is we monitor the counsellors very rigorously. They have screen and phone recording, so all their calls are recorded. And if we ever have a problem, and what I've found, which is really interesting, is that when if there's ever a complaint, often when we listen to the call, it's interesting is that the complaint often isn't valid. So what I think that's about is the client is often so distressed they've forgotten some of the information the counsellor's given them. And so it's been really helpful just to be able to sit down with the counsellor and go through the call if there has been a complaint. Sometimes it's a genuine complaint, but what I've learned is on occasion it's not, and sometimes the client's just not really listened clearly and the complaint wasn't valid. So anyway, the call recording is really good for that reason, and also to make sure that all of our counsellors do follow the model of care. And this is just some of the training our counsellors do. So they're well trained to be able to manage all different calls from this family intervention, problem gambling, assist the suicide training, youth training, supervision training, motivational interviewing training, and training for cultural, cold and Indigenous callers. So that's a brief introduction to the helpline.